Healing minds, inspiring voices, living truth, making choices. This is your space. Just be you, authentically peculiar with Marcia. Welcome to a space where healing is real, where your voice matters and your truth is enough. With authentically peculiar. Season 5, the year of expansion, healing deeper, living louder, stepping fully into who you are. Authentically peculiar with Marcia.
Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am loving season 5 so far because I've had the pleasure of meeting so many people at conferences that I probably wouldn't have gotten to meet. And being able to meet Miss Corri Brewer in Augusta, Georgia at the Black History Mental Health Conference was amazing for me because I could resonate with her energy. But let me give you a little background about Corey. She has been a clinician, a licensed professional counselor for 15 years. She works with children, adolescents, and family, and she is an expert in crisis management, therapeutic assessments, and her ability to navigate complex interpersonal situations with empathy. Her practice is defined by a commitment to resilience, building, and the delivery of tailored interventions. She is also a anger management and addictions counseling professional. She offers sophisticated evidence-based approach to behavioral health. Additionally, that ain't all, y'all. She's a certified life coach as well because she wants the opportunity to enable and guide her clients through proactive goal setting opportunities, bridging that gap between clinical recovery and sustainable personal growth. In addition, let me reach over here. At the end, and I hope you all can see these. I'm gonna try to make sure because I got the screen up. But at the end of the conversation, we're gonna talk about her mother-daughter conversation cards because we have to bridge the gap between all of these things that's going on between mothers and daughters. Okay. So Corey, thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
for your yes and for showing up today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's get into it. You
Okay.
have all of these credentials going on, but I want you to share with the audience the importance of your work with bridging the gaps between mothers and daughters and using empathy as part of that roadmap.
So I have a daughter. She's 30.
Okay.
And we've had some challenges,
Mm-hmm.
we're a lot alike, but we're also very different.
Mm-hmm.
And we were best friends when she was younger, even through the high school years. Of course, that was challenging. But once she became a full-fledged adult and moved out of the house, there was a shift.
Mm.
And I was like trying to figure out what is going on, what's happening, where is this disconnect coming from?
Yeah.
And one day I just got the idea, um, while I'm working with her to bridge those gaps. I know everybody else has the same problem.
Yeah.
Mothers and daughters everywhere. I
Mm-hmm.
rare to meet a mother and daughter who doesn't struggle
Mm-hmm.
with this. So
Mm-hmm.
she and I actually worked on it together.
Nice.
Not together, but she gave me her input
Mm-hmm.
on what she needed from me as a
Mm-hmm.
mom.
Okay.
And then we came up with these cards. The cards it's not a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guide to starting the conversations, the difficult conversations. Because
Mm-hmm.
I still struggle with that. If
Yes.
it's something I think is going to make her mad, I have a hard time bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you want to keep it peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just noticing the little things that she does and the little things that I do, because it's never just one person. It's always something each person can do to make things better, and each person you that does things that make it not better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I really got into analyzing that. So in the cards, there's I'm glad you got your cards, by the way.
Yes.
So there it's a dual deck. There's a deck for mom and there's a deck
Mm-hmm.
for daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And they're similar in what's in each deck,
Mm-hmm.
but it's catered to focus from the mom's perspective and then from
Mm-hmm.
the daughter's perspective.
I love that.
So it starts out with just the rules of engagement. And that is a lot of that is catching yourself with some of the negative communication styles that we have,
Mm-hmm.
using I statements and going into it with a positive mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and work with the idea that we're going into the conversation not to fight,
Mm-hmm.
but to communicate positively. And if you
Right.
don't have your mind on that, um, that's how you get caught up in the
Mm-hmm.
bickering
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And we don't think
Absolutely.
about it, but now you got it here written in black and white so you can
Mm-hmm.
see it. And then there are subsections. There's a self-reflection section because we got to
Okay.
check ourselves
Mm-hmm.
before we can, and as moms, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We always checking our kid. Well, you do this wrong and you do that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But do we take time out to check ourselves
For
and
that
what we're doing wrong?
accountability. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's self-reflection for each person. I even say, if you're not really ready to be honest with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you might not be ready for this conversation. You might need to get therapy for yourself
And I
because you
tell
do.
parents that all the time.
Yeah.
Parents, we don't have this notch of perfection that we would like to think that we have as parents, nor are children obligated, especially once they're grown, to subject themselves to our parenting measures.
Right.
We got to look in the face of accountability of being a parent. How difficult has it been for you to switch from parenting your pre-adult to your post-adult daughter?
It's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where my background as a therapist comes in handy because I'm really using cognitive behavioral therapy to
Mm-hmm.
control um, my negative
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
comments, because a lot of times as parents we say what we want to say,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not okay anymore because that's not really your baby. So
Right.
controlling those nitpicky thoughts that I
Mm-hmm.
have and
Mm-hmm.
switch and reframing it to positive, because that's really what they want from us. They want to hear they still are babies
And they still
even
want
though
to
they're
be
grown.
heard. They
Yeah.
want to be heard. They want to be valued and validated and
Encouraged.
encouraged and not reminded all the time of the decisions that they're making that we would do differently.
And that's the thing. I
Hmm.
had to remember just because I wouldn't do it that way doesn't mean that her way is wrong.
Right.
That's her way, and she has her own mistakes to make. And if I've done my job as a parent in them 18, 20 years, then I have to trust that she's going to figure it out. And if
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't, then I'm there to catch her
Mm-hmm.
when she
Mm-hmm.
falls and then be her support. And I think we really struggle with that
Yeah.
as parents. We want to just tell.
Mm-hmm.
We want to point out all the wrongs. And it was really hard for me to change my brain. Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, that's something I've been working on really my whole adult life.
Do you think
But
that comes from your parenting experience
absolutely.
with your mother?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And
Absolutely.
and a lot of people don't realize. I have clients who say, I don't want to be like my mother, but then they begin to warp into their
Yeah.
mother's ways because you hadn't learned the permission you need to give yourself to not be in that space of your mother and not have these conditions that you were given that you pass
Hmm.
on to your own children. What would be advice that you would give to mothers to say, hold on, sister, you know you're out of line. I'm gonna need you to change that thought. What would be some of that advice and or scenarios where you've had to do that?
You know, yeah, all the time.
Mhm.
And so my daughter, she's in the medical field,
Okay.
but she's really smart, and so she will call me on my stuff. Well, mom, is that, is that's probably because of the way you were raised. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have, she
And
will
those
she will
checks
call
don't
me.
feel good.
No, they don't.
Hmm.
But it's really, we have to humble ourselves as a
Hmm.
parent. We have to
Hmm.
accept our mistakes as a
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you said, I prayed. I do not want to be a mother like my mother,
Hmm.
hard.
Hmm.
But a lot of the things that I did were repetitious of what my mother did.
Hmm.
And that hurts, but
Hmm.
you have to accept it, and you have to apologize for it. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the hard things that I deal with my mom, is she
Hmm.
knows she did things wrong, but
Hmm.
she never owned it. And you have to
Mm.
own what you're doing wrong. You have to accept that you've done wrong, because
Hmm.
you have. And
So how
then
do
you
you,
start fresh.
yeah, but how do you move forward when they won't accept accountability and you need to move forward?
When the mom doesn't accept the accountability.
Yes. I know.
So
I know. Take that deep breath again, baby, because that could be tough.
so in my life,
Hmm.
I chose to disconnect
Okay.
from my mom,
Hmm.
because it was so toxic, and it
Hmm.
was still kind of a lot of the same. And so
Hmm.
I was just being re-injured. That's what I chose to do. I'm
Hmm.
not saying that's what everybody needs to
Right.
do. You really have to analyze your own situation,
Hmm.
but you can't change nobody. So if she's not ready,
Hmm.
then you have to, hey, and I've said before, hey, when you're ready to have this discussion,
Hmm.
then we'll have it.
Hmm.
But we're not getting anywhere until you're open.
It,
Um,
and that's so true. I'm an advocate of forgiveness and move on is necessary because, in my opinion, when we don't forgive, we stay hooked to their toxicity. I'm forgiving you for your inability to show up as the mother that I needed in my life. I am forgiving myself for trying to force you to be the mother that I needed in my life. And I'm releasing myself because I know the toxicity of you not showing up the way I need you to be in my life is harming me worse.
mhm,
So I'm not one to go out there and be like, just disconnect automatically because that's a personal choice.
right.
But I usually tell clients, you have a right to choose. I told
Mhm,
that to my kids. You got a right to
right.
choose. You have a right to be able to say what you feel without me going into a defensive place. My mother used to use that defensive, I guess I wasn't a good mother then.
Right.
It's like, bro, who told you that? That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Why does it become personal? So when you have especially the younger generation who's struggling hard, especially around Mother's Day, do I show up? Am I there? How do
Right.
you help them really understand that you have a choice in the matter?
Um, again, pointing out that they have no control over the other person and what that
Hmm.
person does, how they
Hmm.
behave.
Hmm.
You have to focus, the cards tell you, focus on what you do, focus on
Hmm.
what you say, focus
Hmm.
on how you're responding.
Hmm.
You do,
Hmm.
as long as you do your part, then what they're doing is what they're doing. And if
Hmm.
it's in you to try, and to
Mm-hmm.
put forth the effort, then put it in. But
Exactly.
if your heart tells you this is not working, this is not for me, then you step away. But again,
Mm-hmm.
that's personal choice,
Mm-hmm.
for each person. But
Absolutely.
you know,
And I want to jump into using the cards as a jump off for the conversation. One of the things I love about the cards is the rules that you spoke about, because we know that so many people have difficulty establishing rules,
mm-hmm,
establishing boundaries, and
mm-hmm,
honoring the consequences of their boundaries. So some of your rules was, before you engage in this conversation, be honest with yourself and be honest with the person that you're sharing space with, whether it's the mother to the daughter or the daughter to the mother. I would even throw in mother to sons, because
right,
we know that
mm-hmm,
there are some mother wounds attached to these young men as well.
absolutely, mm-hmm,
Avoid being defensive. So that means you got to check in with you
yeah,
and ask yourself, why are you being defensive? And don't bring some pencil and paper to this conversation
yeah,
so you don't interrupt. And then be intentional to listen without preparing a response, but listen to hear. I always do the message and receiver
mm-hmm.
uh, ideology about a conversation. How do you help prepare clients to utilize these rules when they begin their work with the cards?
Well, so again, that's why I have the section in there about self-reflection.
Mm-hmm,
You have
mm-hmm,
to really look at yourself and check yourself.
mm-hmm,
And maybe you're not open yet to doing this.
mm-hmm,
Hopefully you are,
mm-hmm.
but if you're not, then maybe you need to look into one-on-one counseling to get you there.
Yeah.
Maybe you're too wounded from,
Mm.
your own mother-daughter experience and you're not ready because like we were talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for
At
yourself.
all.
It's
Mm-hmm,
for you to release that weight
mm-hmm,
and to be able to move on.
mm-hmm.
And if you can't do that, then you can't effectively be an agent of change with
Right.
your own child,
Exactly.
um, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm,
Because my daughter struggles with that. She struggles with being able to let go of stuff from the past.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that hangs us up a lot.
Right.
So the main thing is being open and honest with yourself and evaluating where you are and
Yeah.
getting yourself emotionally and mentally ready
Mm-hmm.
for this.
And I always define as a metaphor of being on a giant hook.
Mm-hmm.
When you are operating in unforgiveness, you and that person are on this giant hook and it's just kind of swinging back and
Mm-hmm.
forward. And the only way that you can get off that hook is letting them get off the hook, not
Yeah.
letting them get off the hook from a perspective of, we just gonna glaze over the fact that you hurt me. That's not
Right.
it. It's the, I'm getting you off this hook of holding on to me, holding on to this anger, holding on to this frustration, holding on to restlessness, my nervous system being impacted. I'm getting off the hook with you. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
you well enough to keep swinging on this hook anyway. So
Right.
why am I going to put myself, on this hook? So how does it show up in conversations and in your bodies when there are unhealed wounds between mothers and daughters?
The conversation is a lot of blaming, a lot of
Mm,
resentment,
mhm,
anger.
mhm.
And as we know, that shows up in our bodies in so many different physical ways.
Yeah.
You know, racing heart, which what that ends up being high blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
stomach problems can
Mm-hmm.
turn into something else,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
depression,
Mm-hmm.
loss of
Mm-hmm.
sleep, so many different things, so many ways that it's affecting your body. So now, a issue with a conversation now becomes an issue for your whole life. It's affecting every
Mm-hmm.
part of your life. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why this is so important. And
Yeah.
it just really is something that is important that we tackle and manage,
Mm-hmm.
because of so many, we can go into the history of all the different things and all the
Mm-hmm.
whys and the whats, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly, we have to start with today because we
Mm-hmm.
cannot go back. We can't change it. We can't fix it. We have to start today because
Okay.
you don't
And
want it to be passed on any more
mm-hmm.
than what it has been.
I totally agree. But I'm gonna throw a little twist on it. The going backwards, from my perspective, is getting to know somewhat of your mother's story.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Understanding, and I'm actually doing a master class on that. Understanding my mother's story healed my wounds. That didn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that I automatically ran back into this relationship, but it means that when I understand that your own mother didn't know how to love you and you transferred that same energy into our relationship, it helped me to heal that you never got the love that I was seeking. So you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to even share that love. You knew
Right.
how to engage in sex. You knew how to engage in somewhat of a conversation, but sharing spaces of love and empathy um, can challenge that idea. So, yeah, we got to be in the now, but part of that past shows up,
Yeah.
in your section that says getting to know her, asking questions like, describe yourself to me
Mm-hmm.
is part of that past
Right.
journey, because even though your children think they know you,
Right.
if they hadn't sat
They
down and
don't.
you hadn't shared your story,
That's
because
right.
a lot of times mothers won't share their story because, especially in the Black community, everything was hush hush.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would your child get to know your story?
Yeah. It's a matter of you, and that's in the getting to know you section. It talks also about planning dates, if
I like that.
and spending quality time with each other, and in that
Hmm.
time you're going to engage in these conversations. Tell
Yeah,
Because you know me as a mom, but it's different to know me now because now we get to actually be friends,
yeah,
so
yeah.
now I want to familiarize you with the person that I am and the
Hmm.
person that I was, what
Hmm.
brought me to who I am right now.
Hmm.
And same on the other side. I knew her as my child, just completely different
Mhm.
than knowing her as a woman. And there are things
Absolutely.
that they don't share with us, because they're in that, well, that's my mama. But now I want to know. Um,
Yeah.
and
Especially from
that's,
their childhood, those traumatic
yeah.
moments that you're finding out now as they are adults because they feel
Hmm.
safe in sharing that. How heartbreaking is that to know that when they were younger and going through?
It is, I just spend a lot of nights up crying and praying, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like I was there. I thought we had good communication. I thought I had, created an environment for safety. And it doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that I wasn't, but
Mm-hmm.
there are just some things that for whatever reason they don't share.
Mm-hmm. It could
And
be just the safety of the environment. I remember with my daughter, she was afraid to share with me that someone had touched her
mhm.
because my own transference of being touched and unprotected as a kid, I would always say, if somebody ever touch you, I'm going to kill them, right?
Okay.
And so that created an unsafe environment for her to tell me. In my head,
Man,
I'm setting up this rule of protection.
right.
But as parents, we have to understand that our words shape their actions and their beliefs. And that was a real aha moment when it was
Yeah.
finally shared with me that, dang, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to create this environment of safety and
Protection.
I
Yeah.
still failed.
And
One
that's
of the,
a perfect example of
mm-hmm,
how you're trying to do your best to
mm-hmm,
protect your child, and
mm-hmm,
just in your verbiage,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it transitioned in her brain to
Yes,
something else.
absolutely.
And that's not your fault. Like, you
It's not.
tried, and you have to
Mm-hmm,
forgive
mm-hmm,
yours. And I know that hurt.
mm-hmm,
I know you
mm-hmm,
blame,
mm-hmm.
but we have to accept
Accept it.
and forgive ourselves,
And then
because
create a new safe space
yes,
for yourself and for them as well. I
right.
remember my daughter saying to her babies, the grandmother that you're getting now is not the mother that I
Right,
had. And I said, whoa, that's such a powerful acknowledgement.
right.
And so I validated my daughter's statement with her babies. She's absolutely right because I was going through the testing period with
Mm-hmm.
her, but I've learned to master certain aspects of testing. So I'm not on trial here. Now she's on trial of getting
Right.
it right. A lot of times, mothers don't want to hear that because they think, because of the sacrifices that they've made, they think because of sometimes neglecting themselves in parenting that they got it right. Well, baby, let me
Mm-hmm.
talk to y'all in the audience. You didn't.
Right.
What your babies are feeling is their true experience.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing perfect about parenting.
It's a trial
Nothing
and
at
error
all.
all day, every day.
Y'all can read that crazy Dr. Spock book on parenting if
Mm-hmm.
you want to. And I always say that men can't write books on how to be a mama because they ain't never been a mama.
Right.
So put them books aside and show up within yourself, asking yourself, what heartache do I not want to transfer to my children or be transferred to
Mm.
my grandchildren that I'm now aware of? What's your
Yeah.
thoughts about that question?
I thought I asked myself those questions.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was prepared. I thought I was going to do everything right, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I still made mistakes. I still repeated some of the errors. Um, but we do the best that we can. Your intention means more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're just not going to do your best.
Well, you're
And I
doing the
think that's a
best with
good
the
part to
knowledge
talk
that
about
you
too.
have. Absolutely. You're
Yeah.
doing the best with the knowledge and understanding that you have in that moment. I think the bigger breakthrough for parents is being able to say, I take accountability for what I knew then
Mm-hmm.
and how I can change the now. And what you experienced is your truth without trying to get them to change their story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that your card deck actually gives the mother and daughter permission to say, here's where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I desired to be and didn't always get it right. But here's
Mm-hmm.
where I hear it impacted you.
Right.
I think that's where the healing is.
Right.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
In those three areas, because here's where I am now as I age and grow
Mm-hmm.
gracefully into this 60s era of my life, moving into 60s, is understanding one, my children aren't obligated to be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts about that?
You know, that's interesting, because my daughter is kind of the opposite. She wants me to lean on her. She wants me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, hey, I'm not invalid yet. I
Mm-hmm.
can still do things, but she wants to be a support for me. So
Absolutely.
we bump heads about that. But I think some parents do definitely struggle with letting go.
Yeah.
because it's different,
It's different when they want to be versus you're trying to say that they're obligated to be.
right,
And
right.
that
And
was
and
the
a lot of
freedom
people
ticket
think
I gave
that.
to my kid. They do, and it cringed my soul
Hmm.
every time when I hear mother say, "Well, I'm your mama." By choice. By choice, you became my mother. I didn't have a choice in that action, and I honor you in choosing to become my mother. But my desire to be present for you as you begin to age is also a choice. And I
Hmm.
want to choose that without the obligation
The
of guilt.
obligation,
And I
yeah.
think that's why a lot of children run away from it. It's
Right.
because that obligation. How do you help parents, excuse me, recognize the importance of understanding their daughters and their sons wanting to be present for them without the obligation?
It's important to teach
Hmm.
parents how to love themselves and recognize themselves as an individual. A lot of times
Hmm.
we recognize ourselves. I know I struggle with, well, I'm her mom. Like my name,
Hmm.
like the kids, oh, that's so and so mama. That was my
Hmm.
name.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's not who I am anymore. And we have
Hmm.
to um understand now who we are. We was mom, and now we're not. We're an individual. We're an
Hmm.
maturing woman.
Hmm.
And just recognize the individuality of who we are and give
Yeah.
them their individuality,
Hmm.
because now they have their life and their family and their responsibilities.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. I often tell my children, since I'm not married, that I am a family of one and you all are extensions of me. And I
Hmm.
had to embrace it from that space because all three of my children are married. I
Hmm.
had to remind my son that I am no longer the queen in his life because he's married. And that wasn't to discredit myself, but understanding that my role shifted. And I had
And
to
that's so
remind my
important.
daughters, and a lot of women don't do that.
Right.
They don't shift in that role. But I never wanted my son to feel like he had to choose between me and his wife.
Right.
Likewise, with my daughters, I had to remind them that I honor you in the space as a wife and as a mother. When people would send me messages about my grandchildren, I would say, "You need to talk to their mother." I'm a grandmother.
Hmm.
I'm not their mother. I don't make decisions based on my perspective. Now, if they need
Right.
me to weigh in or something of that nature, I wait for that invitation. I don't overstep
That's
my
it right there.
role. And so many mothers have challenges with that because their own mothers
Yes.
stepped outside of the role. And so I remind them, how did that feel when your mama was in your business, trying to
Hmm.
tell you how to parent, trying to tell you or take over to get your kids to like them better than you? How do you help parents, especially mothers, understand that our identity has shifted when our children become adults? How do you help them to really navigate this newness that our own mamas didn't help us prepare for?
Yeah, that's the hard part right there.
Hmm.
It is identifying that you don't have that right to
Hmm.
step in and intervene. I actually have a
Hmm.
client right now who's struggling with that.
Hmm.
And one of the things my daughter said to me was, um, when I call you and talk to you about something, I don't want your advice. I just want you to listen. And that was so hard.
It's like a spanking. Because my
Yeah,
youngest daughter said that to me at 15, and I had to clutch my pearls and say, "What do you mean? You don't need me to fix it." She
right,
said, "I don't want you to solve the problem. I just need you to listen."
right. And that's a conversation to be had. Um, what do you want from me
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
as an adult dealing with your
What does
mom?
that support look like?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's such a huge question. And then mothers, I need you to be in a space where you can say, what does support look like from my adult children?
Mm-hmm.
Not obligatory, but what do I need as a support system from you? That's
Right.
huge.
It is.
And so, would you say that takes a lot of self awareness?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think moms also have to, this is a time, when the kids are out for you, it's a reboost of your life. Like
Yes.
you should be exploring new
Mm-hmm.
hobbies or ones that you put to the side, going
Mm-hmm.
out, having a good time. That's what I'm doing. Like I don't have time to be busy in her business.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at this as an opportunity of growth, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of seeing it for the negative, oh well, why she don't need me, or she needs me too much, all these
Mm-hmm.
excuses that we tell ourselves to make it okay for us to be in
Mm-hmm.
their business.
Mm-hmm. And
You
I'll
just have
add
to
on to
talk.
that. I'll
Yeah.
add on to that. As a grandparent, you have to redefine yourself there as well, because I
Mm-hmm.
found myself, like my mother, being a very active grandparent and not living for
Mm-hmm.
me, being at everything, doing everything, being the go-to, all of that. And I, in this last year, had to say, you're just a grandparent. Not
Right.
diminishing my role, but recognizing as I'm aging, if I'm so consumed with my grandchildren's lives and my adult children's lives, what room am I leaving for me to build my own life and
Mm-hmm.
reintroducing Marcia to Marcia and then to the world? Because we've taken on all of these labels. So one of the things that I challenge my moms is, who are you without
Mm-hmm.
all of these connected labels? Can
Mm-hmm.
you give me 5 adjectives to define who you are? Most of them have difficulty because their only definition
Right.
of themselves is through the eyes of how they're needed in their
Right.
children's life. That can actually send you to an early death.
Right.
And I'm going to give you an example with my own mother. My mother was the oldest of 10, a sharecropper's daughter. But I remember having a conversation probably 6 months before she died. And she said, I don't feel like anybody needs me anymore. Because
Mm-hmm.
she had built a life of having to help her mother parent her siblings, having to parent her own children, having to parent the community, having an identity of being the hero in so many lives, that when she was no longer needed in those shoes, I honestly believe she stopped living
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't see that she had any value outside of being needed. So I encourage mothers to find your value in you.
Mm-hmm.
Find your identity in you. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree. One of the things that I assign a lot of women to do is to make a list of
Mm.
all the things you know how to do, all the
Mhm.
things you like to do,
Mhm.
your favorite things about you, all the things that people say about you. So you
Yes.
come up with this list
Mhm.
of attributes
Mhm.
that are not mom, grandma, wife,
Mhm.
so you can take a look and see who I am.
Mhm.
I assign
Mhm.
people sometimes go find a new hobby.
Mhm. Mhm.
Go. I don't care if you have to walk around Hobby Lobby and find something to do,
Exactly.
but reach outside of yourself and
Mm-hmm.
find something new to enjoy, because life is
Exactly.
short and your life is not mom. It's not defined by being a
Mm-hmm.
mom.
I usually say it looks like a spoken wheel. You're the middle and you got all these spokes coming out of
Mm-hmm.
you. Those are just connectors to you. They are not your identity to who you
Mm-hmm.
are. They're just those connectors. So, our hope today is that mothers and daughters and even mothers and sons can begin to mend these wounds that have caused them to be separated. So I'm going to shift just a little bit and ask
Okay.
you, how does authentically peculiar resonate with you?
I love that title because when I first became a therapist, I worried about, I'm a natural introvert. So
Mm-hmm.
talking is not
Me
my
too.
favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why did I pick this career? How am I going to feel comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I just had to say to myself, yes, I stumble over my words.
Mm-hmm.
I was laughing at myself at the conference because I dropped all the stuff off the podium. Listen, I'm clumsy. This is just who I am. And I
But
have
you were
to
natural.
accept,
Mm-hmm.
right. I have to accept me as me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
flawed and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
do not have to be what anybody else thinks I should be or what anybody else wants me to be. I'm okay being my own little weirdo me.
I
and
love
and
that.
that's fine.
I love it. So not weirdo, you just peculiar you.
Yeah.
Authentically peculiar because you were created to do the work that you do.
Yeah.
Even and I am the self-proclaimed ambivert. I am a true
Yeah.
introvert, but when I need to turn the light on to
Right.
extrovertism, I do, and then I go right back into that
Right.
shell. So I'm a true ambivert in that nature, but you were
Yeah.
created for this story. So share with the audience how they can reach out to you, how they can order the card so that they can begin their conversations.
Yes. And I agree. This was definitely my calling, and my purpose. So, to purchase the cards, I'm on all social media, as Brewer Counseling Services LLC. The cards can be found through PayPal. So if you go to PayPal and just type in Brewer Counseling Services LLC, or if you type in mother daughter um, conversation, it
Mhm.
should come up. I was going to try to share my screen so you could see it.
Well,
Um,
what will happen is I'll put a QR code to your PayPal. Just send me
okay,
that QR code to the PayPal,
okay,
and I'll attach that at the end of the video so that
okay,
they have ease of access
okay, great.
to
Sounds
getting
good.
the cards. And that way, because my goal is for them to not only grab the cards but to connect with you on social media as well, because
Yes,
we need to have these continued conversations of healing these wounds that we didn't ask for, but they're there and that we
yes,
can build upon. So yeah, I'm excited because I looked at the cards and I said that I was going to start engaging in more conversation. My kids be tired of me though, because I'll go to them, I'll have a memory of something that I said or did from their
hmm,
childhood and be like, hey, can we talk about this? How did this impact
yeah,
them? Like, dang, man, can you stop recalling? We good, we're fine,
yeah,
and that kind of thing. But it's because I take accountability
right.
for me. I have to sit in the moments when even the grandbabies say, you know, sometimes you're mean. Like you have this mean, unapproachable look. And it's just like, no, I don't. And so my granddaughter took a picture of me and I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
let me soften up this look. Cause it was
yeah,
just like, and I know that in public I can be that way unless I'm in my aura of being able in conferences and stuff like that. I have a whole different face
right.
when I'm delivering messages. And so we take those things into consideration. So as we get ready to close, what would be a final message that you would give to those in the audience listening to you?
Um, I just think that it is so important to connect emotionally with our daughters, our children, period,
Mm-hmm.
and have these difficult conversations
Mm-hmm.
and learn to rebuild
Yeah.
what has been damaged and broken so
Mm-hmm.
that we don't continue to pass on these generational traumas. And
Yeah.
the goal of the cards is to help people to do that. And even though they say adult daughters, these cards can be used with teens. They can be used with sons,
Mm-hmm.
um, because
Mm-hmm.
they are, it's not really gender specific, but
Right.
I created it with me and my daughter in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
keep that in mind. The goal is open conversation
To
and
have the
improving
conversation.
and healing. Yeah.
Hmm. I love that. So just remember, go get these cards. Start having the conversations that you didn't think were needed, but are desperately needed within your family. Again, these
Mhm.
cards are gender neutral. They're age neutral. You can have them with anyone. I strongly recommend these cards. They are amazing and they will have you stopping in your tracks and thinking, even if you take your own side, the mother cards, go into the cards yourself and identify what those cards are saying to you and your responses. As a daughter, give them to them and then you all come together. Give
Mhm.
them to your son. Buy a couple of
Right.
batches. Buy a couple of packs, right? And pass them out and then share what your
Mhm.
experiences are. So thank you, Corey, so
Thank you so
much
much.
for being a guest on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. You will find all of Corey's contact information in the body of the episode. Please go out and support the great work that she's doing. Ask questions, leave us comments. We will respond to your comments or your questions that you may have. We always encourage you to get your own therapist so that you can begin to navigate these conversations. And as
Mhm.
always, thank you for being a part of the Authentically Peculiar with Marcia family, and we'll see you at the next episode. Thank you for sharing time and space with us today on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Don't forget to like, comment, and share the podcast with everyone that you know. In addition, go out and support each of the guests and their own social platforms. Buy their products, leave them a comment. We'll see you on the next episode of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia.